I don't even know what episode this is. Okay, number three, okay. Alright, let's start this now. Hello and welcome to the Beefy Sandwich Subcast, the MMO edition. Hello guys.
Hey, how's it going?
Welcome back. This is episode 3. That's right. I think, yeah, episode 3. How am I already losing count?
I don't know, man.
I don't know. What's going on?
Are you tired? Are you high?
A bit of both, maybe. Just for reference, last week, maybe we should mention last week. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get a subcast out due to me and Wayne, simply because we're on opposite schedules, and it was very difficult for us to find some time together. But we do intend to keep the weekly releases, and you can still expect that. It was just a momentary lapse in judgment for that particular week, I think. Anything to add, Wayne?
Yep, and odds are that it will happen again, but we've at some point, it might not be for a month or two, but odds are it will happen. So to counteract that, the other guys in our group, if it's unlikely we're able to put out a cast, they'll put out something else instead. So you'll still have content.
Yeah, we're in talks for that now.
Cast. Yeah, literally, we've been talking about that all morning.
Yeah. Also, maybe the future of I don't know if we want to bring this up, but we were thinking about maybe changing the format slightly. We're still thinking about it. We're still discussing it, but there may be some change in format to the subcast later on. We won't go into much detail. We'll bring that up maybe next time.
Yeah. Basically, if we do, it will be active next time, so you'll see it.
Yeah. So let's not spoil the surprise. But yeah, until then, we're keeping the same format. This is us just talking with what's our subject today?
Today we'll be talking about the lore in MMOs.
Lore.
I'm going to try really hard not to go too off topic and keep it related to MMOs.
Yeah.
But
lore is a huge thing. It's it's huge for MMOs and single player games alike. So it's a big deal when it comes to gaming.
It's huge for gaming entirely. Even in the board game sense. Look at D&D.
Oh yeah.
Before peak computers were even a thing.
Yeah, you relied on it. I guess you relied on it.
Yeah, exactly.
So, let's start off with straight to the point. How effective is lore, and do you think it's maybe necessary for an MMO to include lore in its game?
Kind of. So I think that you always need the element there. Sorry, my words are all fucked. All messed up. I think you need the element there, as in you need to make it obvious that it's a fantasy game, or that it's a sci-fi game, or that it's an action RPG. But with the way that games are going nowadays, I don't think you really need lore to do so. Because I can tell you for a fact that the last couple of MMOs that I've played, I've not even bothered reading the text, watching the cutscenes. I'm skipping past everything. But maybe that's because the last game I played was Guild Wars 2, and it's so fast paced that you just want to go as fast as you can to get to max level, and that means not spending time on all the lore and everything.
That's a good point, and I'm sort of glad that you brought up Guild Wars. Excuse me, because I do have a beef with Guild Wars 2 and its lore. I do. Maybe let me talk you through it. It's somewhat extensive, but let me talk you through it. Right. So I just felt like when I was playing Guild Wars 2, I felt like I was really being dragged through its main quest line, and as a result, it's chucking all this lore at me, in the text, in what they call your personal story. You remember that, right, Ray?
Yeah,
yeah. But when in actual fact, I just felt like I was going through the same motions as everybody else. There was nothing personal about it. So it didn't immerse me in the slightest. And if anything, it just made me feel, disconnected from the world because it kept pulling me away from it by chucking me into yet another instance battle that I didn't even care about because of this lore story that they're throwing at me,
Yeah.
And that's what I felt I had from Guild Wars 2. That's all I seemed to experience in Guild Wars 2. I was literally just, skipping through all of the cutscenes. It was just, and I can't imagine anyone actually reading through that much text. I mean, okay, if you're like super into lore, then you may enjoy it. But the way they presented their lore, I didn't like it. I didn't like how they forced it onto me,
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't agree more. There's been other games that I've played where they somehow, like, even though the way the lore works can run the same way as Guild Wars 2, it doesn't feel so forced upon you.
Yeah.
I think what makes it even worse was the way they got around releasing actual content for the game was their 2 weekly living story, like you said, and the fact that all it was lore. Like, they would release, like, extra clips of story, every 2 weeks, and they'd give you this thing. You'd go around and you'd kill, like, a boss for 2 weeks. And it was because, like, this person decided to make this decision, and that was your content for 2 weeks. I think it made me despise lore even more, purely because of how they went about doing it.
Yeah, I'm not gonna, put it down, but I think lore is very important, but I just felt like the way they presented it, it wasn't too great. And even nowadays in a lot of games, MMOs, anything really, I find that there's a lot of lore, not just to the world that you're playing in, but also onto your own character that you're playing with. Let me give you an example. Like when you look back at these older RPG type games, when you're games like, I don't know, Shining Force and Chrono Trigger, games where your character maybe wasn't so overdeveloped.
Yeah.
There'd be no backstory of your character, maybe nothing more than, oh, your family were kidnapped, or the evil guy is trying to take over the world, do something, That, I felt like that lack of information left it up to you to use your own imagination to create your character's own backstory. It was up to you to use the world around you, to mold and create this story, as opposed to a ton of dialogue telling you, where you're from, how you lived, where you're going, why you're going, and what you're going to do now. You had to put it all together yourself, and that helped build that character and mold it, to build the story behind that character yourself, and it created a connection, I think.
Yeah, that's another thing with Guild Wars 2 as well, because when you created your character, you sort of had to pick your...
Yeah, you had to... That's what sort of put
away.
This into my head, because of that specific thing. We're sort of badging on Guild Wars 2 right now.
No, but, I played it for, like... just a disclaimer, I did play that game for, like, well over 3 months, and I did enjoy it when I was playing it. It just got a bit boring.
We don't mean to be picking on Guild Wars 2, but I mean it's games in general. There is that that the whole thing's all set up for you already with your story and with your character and with the world around you. There's no connect the dots yourself.
Yeah. To be completely frank with you though, like as far as lore goes, I don't really care too much about it. I've never been someone who cared much about the story in MMOs. If I'm playing a game like Skyrim or Oblivion or Fallout, those good old RPGs, Final Fantasy games especially, I always love the story. I watch all the cutscenes. Sometimes it's mostly because you can't skip them, well, you couldn't back in the day. Yeah. But like, I'm interested in the lore. But when I start playing an MMO, like the way I play is I want to rush to the end game and start playing the end game and like get really hardcore into it, rather than listening to why my character is here saving the entire world and like, what I'm saving it from, and that generic story. It's always that generic story anyway. I think that's why I got bored of it in MMOs.
Yeah, I think it just depends how they present it to you. But like you said, you did enjoy like the cutscenes and the adventure stories, with these other games like Final Fantasy, which again I agree with. Final Fantasy X being one of my favorite games. I loved the story behind it. I loved everything about it. So yeah, I think it's just the way they present the lore to you. In games, let's say, I'm trying to think of an example here. Let's Skyrim. No, a better example. Let's use an MMO, EverQuest. EverQuest had no main storyline. You logged into the game and you began your grind to level 60. And although the EverQuest lore was all around you with, books and scrolls for you to read if you wanted to, even looking at the infrastructure from places like the Dwarven cities with the Dwarven statues, or, undead cities filled with ruins or an ancient race, a lot of these things would fit together well, and they never looked out of place or felt generic, like a lot of other MMOs would just randomly throw in some ruins here and there, just to fill up the empty space. There was always a reason behind it, and I felt like they presented the lore to you pretty well, in that fact. They didn't throw it at you. They didn't make you, work through a main quest line, dragging you through this whole story that they've created up for you. And I just felt like it was presented well, and I think that's what's important with an MMO. If you're going to have lore, do it right and present it correctly.
Yeah, you're completely correct. Most of the MMOs I've played, they've had like that sort of main story that you have to go through to like if it's not to level up your character, then it's to unlock extra areas that you're going to need anyway. So you've sort of had to go through the story. You spam the cutscenes because you don't care about them, and you just want to get through them and get on doing what you want to do rather than what they're telling you have to do.
Yeah, it's a shame, and you have to think about like the guys like us who maybe we don't look for the lore, but it's maybe thrown at us. But you have to think about the consequences to that. For example, let me put it: if you were to force a player into a main quest, which is what Guild Wars 2 did, right?
Yeah.
So you're forced into this main quest, something that you may not like or enjoy, or just simply find, you just simply find the main quest boring from the start. And if that's the case, then levels 1 to 50, or however many levels you depend within the game, then you've already created a boring 50 levels before someone's actually played the game, because they're already thinking ahead. I've got to work through all this damn story that I can't seem to stand.
Yeah, that was my one dread with making new characters was the fact that there were other ways to level in that game, but it was so slow and tedious that it wasn't. If you just did the mind-numbingly boring story that I found, then it was just a lot faster. Yeah. But so in that sense, it was still forcing you to go through that, rather than rewarding you for doing other things that you wanted to do. And I think that was an issue. But that isn't like Star Wars: The Old Republic, my other main MMO that I played for quite a while. It was exactly the same as well.
It's a shame they sort of create a lot of dependency on this main storyline. That to not actually do it outweighs the benefits hugely, because you're just simply grinding, very slowly, and there's not really much else. They've not created much else around this main story for those specific levels, But it's when you reach the max level, there's a different story. You've got end game to think about, but until then, you want to keep the player,
immersed.
Immersed, and you can't do that if you just base the entire game around a single main story and expect them to enjoy this story. Because if they don't enjoy it, then you've just prepared you've just created something for them to not look forward to.
Yeah, exactly that. I said I'd try and stay on topic as much as I could, but bringing up board game style Dungeons and Dragons again, I think that was a great example of how lore should work, because even though you've got all that back lore, that there's so much back lore that you still create your character based on whatever the hell you want, literally.
Yeah.
And then the way that you progress is like the way the game goes is entirely dependent upon the people playing and the storyteller, the dungeon master.
Yeah.
And now I know that with a computer there's only so much you can do, but I feel that MMOs in this day should take more of a step towards that, in the sense that you were free to do what you wanted.
I completely agree.
Not.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I also I don't know if you come across this, but I always find that when you do find yourself delving into lore, depending on whatever game it might be, I always felt overwhelmed by how much lore there actually is everywhere, and just trying to touch upon even a little bit meant having to go through texts and pages and pages of backstory and whatever to try to catch up, and it just felt like it was like I said, it was very overwhelming and very tough to keep up with. So I feel like, if you can create a game where you get snippets of these little bits and pieces here and there, just to just to sort of like trinkle it down, towards you, as opposed to just throw it all towards 7 books. Here you go, start reading. You appreciate it a lot more. You can actually and take it in and absorb it a lot more.
Definitely, I couldn't agree more.
Because for example, playing Guild Wars 2. By the time you reached like midway of the game, I don't know how many flipping instances and how many different plot points that were made in the main storyline that I just didn't pay attention to. There was too much to keep up with, too much text to go through, to keep reading through. That there was no way I was ever gonna to grasp all of it.
Yeah, and the way they designed the game mechanics is it being like, if you've heard our past casts, you'll know that it is a DPS race. Everything in that game is just a DPS race.
Yeah.
So to make it, to give the mechanics such a fast, to make everything happen so fast,
yeah.
to make you need to rush to get things done, and then to give you this slow story that you have to slowly go through. It's it's very anticlimactic.
Yeah. I just think there's always better ways to introduce lore, through, I don't know, I like little things like, deities.
Yeah.
That's always fun. Elder Scrolls have always been done well with this. Hopefully, Elder Scrolls Online as well will do well.
Yeah. I love that Elder Scrolls has, they have their huge main story.
Yeah.
But you don't, like, I've got a character that's leveled like 25 on Skyrim right now. Like, I made him quite recently, and he hasn't touched the main story. Like, he's done the very beginning parts just because I wanted to, but after that, like, he's finished this Thieves Guild. He's halfway through the Fighters Guild. He's almost finished the Dark Brotherhoods. He hasn't touched the main story because you're not forced to.
Yeah.
I've been free to. I've done other stories, but it's because I've chosen to do them. If I wanted, I could just go and do random quests, all these miscellaneous quests for ages, and not even worry about any of the lore or any of the backstory to the game that it's giving me. And I think that because you have that choice, like, for example, I never read any of the books because I cannot be bothered to sit there and read all the books.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm sure there's plenty of lore in them, and it opens up the game so much, and it gives you like little pieces of things for certain people and all this other stuff. But I'm not that guy. I'm not the guy who'll read all the books. But the fact that that it gives you choice, it made me want to go through the other stories because I wasn't being made to, if that makes sense.
No, it does. And like you said, with a game like that, that's a game where it's represented and it's presented to you very well, lore, because it's not thrown at you. You don't have to do the main quest. It's there if you want to do it. Same with the lore. You can pick up a book, you can start reading if that's what you want to do, but you're not forced to do so. You can do whatever it is anyone likes to do in an MMO, and that's usually just to go off into the wilderness and start murdering things. I don't know. Maybe I'm on my own with this thinking, but it's just presented very differently, very well, I would say, and that's something that a lot of MMOs seem to be straying away from. They all seem to be doing this whole main storyline thing and then forcing you into it, and if you choose not to do so, you're forced to, really have to grind your way through. Things become very difficult if you choose to go against them on the option of main quest storyline.
Yeah, definitely. With modern day MMOs especially, again like Guild Wars, but also like Star Wars and like other games, when it forces you to make a choice, I'm cool with having to make choices in role-playing games. It's what they're all about. But in a game like Skyrim or even a lot of BioWare games, essentially like almost any BioWare game that isn't Mass Effect, because I don't like them games, purely for the fact that, again, it forces the story upon you. You have to sit there for days reading and making decisions, and I just can't be bothered to do that. But because when I care about the lore, when it's presented to me in a way that I care about it, the choice that I make will be based upon like everything that I've gone through in the game. Like this, I'll analyze the scenario and I'll do what I think would be best for that moment in time. Whereas in Guild Wars, for example, or Star Wars, I spam click or I'm spamming spacebar to skip cutscenes, and then I'm not even reading the choices. I'll see there's 2 choices. I'll just click the first one or whatever one my mouse is closest to. And it just seems like that there's all that effort being put there and it's being wasted because they're presenting it to you completely wrong.
I guess another question is how would you present lore in a way that would you think that people would enjoy?
I think Skyrim has it down, but I can also see how like a lot of games wouldn't be able to do that because Elder Scrolls games are how they are because of how they present their lore and their story as well as all their game mechanics. But maybe having little snippets here and there, like you could be wandering through the wilderness and then you might see a plaque in front of a tree or something, and you can choose to read it or not to.
Yeah.
And then also through quests. But not like a main story that you have to progress. Like you could have multiple different stories, like multiple factions. You could start each of them, for example. And then if one seems like the story's really boring, you don't have to do it. You'll get a reward at the end of it if you finish it. However, you also get a reward if you do one of the others. And like it might have a more interesting story, a story that you can appeal to. For example, you could have one story where you're like this widowed wife, and you're like you lost your husband in war or something, and now you're like nursing people to good health because of your past. But then, there's a lot of guys that might find that quite boring. There's a lot of women that might also find that quite boring. You might want to be the husband who was in that war, and maybe he didn't die, but he got injured or something, and the reason you're doing something else is because of that. It gives you 2 very different stories, but they're still both entwined in the same character.
Yeah, no, I like that. Do you write for a living, Wayne? That's good. Think about it.
My ideas are good, my writing, however, it's not.
I feel the same way. It's just the way they present it to you. I think we're talking about this, but yeah, in games you can make it fun as well. It doesn't have to be open a book and there it is for you. Like you said, you could let's make something up now. We're walking through the wilderness, through the forest or whatever. We're killing whatever it is we're killing. We happen upon a statue of, I don't know, a dwarf or something. I don't know. I like dwarves. Okay.
Okay,
and on the dwarf, perhaps there's like inscriptions, and so lived here so and so long ago, and he created. He lived inside his hidden city, overexposed by this, and it has this around there, and this, an alcove here with this specific mark, and then you could go off, perhaps just continue wandering off to find those specific markings around the area to find that you could locate the hidden city where this dwarf perhaps resides, or that sort of extent where it creates like a sort of like a. It doesn't force you into the lore. You can choose to accept it for what it is, or you can just keep going about your business. But you can, it's just another way for them to immerse you, and that's what lore should be, shouldn't it? To immerse you into a game.
Definitely. Again, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
It's a shame that more games aren't doing it that way these days. What I'm finding more or less is slightly off topic, but still keeping on topic. Games just don't immerse me as much as they once did. Let me think of I can't think of an MMO, because when the lore was good, I was too young to really appreciate it. But I'll pick up say Final Fantasy VII. I played that as a kid. Forget it. You know what? Toy Story 2 on the PlayStation 1. Okay,
I like it.
Right, that game the story in that game was so lame, but somehow it kept me immersed. I wanted to know what was going to happen. I just wanted to know. Maybe it's because I was so young and the story was good for my age. And then Final Fantasy VII, as I got a bit older, I found myself not wanting to put that game down. I found myself not wanting to go to school because I wanted to go and play that game. So, one might say I have a problem, but I think that the lore was just so good in that game. The story was so great that it just completely immersed me. I haven't been immersed in a game in ages as much as I used to be. Even Skyrim, like, the stories are nice and everything, but I can put the game down if I want to. I don't have to stay on it. If I'm staying, what keeps me attracted to things like Skyrim or Oblivion is that I think the gameplay is just so unique and so great. It's not the lore or the story. It's not me wanting to know what's going to happen next that keeps me entertained. And I think that's a shame, because it seems that it's not even just MMOs anymore. It's all games that are doing this, at least for me.
Yeah, and you made a good. You said something very specific, which just stood out to me. You said you wasn't sure if you enjoyed the game, but maybe because the story was good for your age, and that was just the perfect thing, because you're right. The story should be appropriate to the age, and who are the target audience for an MMO? Are they young people, or maybe the more mature people? And I guess that's a difficult thing to grasp when it comes to story-driven games. Who do you target to? In an MMO, because I find that with MMOs they're generally for everyone, and it's difficult to create a straightforward story that's presented well enough for all ages.
Yeah.
It can't be too mature, but then it can't be too childish. But then, you see what I'm saying? It's difficult to get that right mix. And so unless it's mature enough for a mature person, they're not going to enjoy it. But then again, if it's too mature, then the younger audience aren't going to enjoy it. So perhaps that's where they're going wrong. Perhaps maybe they're trying to create a story that's accessible to everyone, but then again, not everyone's enjoying it though. The way that they could be if they were to target these stories to a specific target audience.
Possibly. There's also the possibility that because so many, especially in the recent years, the last 10 years, so many kids, like, and when I say kids, I mean kids.
Yeah.
People that are like 13 to 16, or have the maturity level of someone who's 13 to 16, because maturity isn't what it used to be anymore. In most cases. But like, because of that, and because there's more and more of them that sort of age group playing games, and especially when they're the main people who make complaints when something isn't up, when they don't like something. Like, if you go on forums, it will be the kids complaining that dungeons are too hard and everything. So that they start to try and make them happy. Yeah. Maybe that's exactly why games like Guild Wars 2 spoon feed you a lot, because kids don't know where to look for it. They give it to you. It's right there, screaming in your face. And maybe that's why they do that. Maybe it's to cater to the younger generations.
Yeah, I think we've just touched upon a good point, something that I didn't really think about until right now. So with a game like Skyrim, I felt like there was a lot of maturity within its lore. With the evil deities and whatnot, and I think that's why it did pretty well with our audience and maybe our age group. But then it also had the fun factor for the younger generation too. You had the fun quests as well, and I think that's why they did so well with it. Whereas with an MMO now, it's typically one or the other. It's not all mature, and with some other bits in it, it's always either. Well, I don't really know of any that are incredibly mature, but a lot of them are quite, let's say, World of Warcrafty, because it's very, like you said, it's done for the children. It looks like it's for the younger generations. Yeah, and I'd imagine the lore is just the same. So I guess it really depends on, let's think. I've mentioned this already. I think EverQuest. Yeah, EverQuest. It was I think it was specific. It was that you didn't have children playing EverQuest back in the day. I mean, fair enough. I started playing EverQuest when I was 17 or 18, but by then I was already mature enough to appreciate the lore that they had within the game. And even though it wasn't forced upon you, I did see it myself. It was simple things like race restrictions on classes and whatnot, depending on the deity that you've chosen. You can't have an evil class. An evil race play a good class, or vice versa. For example, you can't have, I don't know, you had like a wood elf. They're typically a good aligned class, and you couldn't have them playing a shadow, a shadow knight, like an evil warrior, because they're aligned to good.
Yeah.
You know, and it was like little things like that where the lore made a difference, but in such a great way, and the way it was presented, I could appreciate it for my age at the time as well, and even now it's done really well. So I think we've touched upon something pretty important. It's, you know, they with MMOs, it's hard to target a specific audience, and as a result, the perhaps the story or the lore or everything else becomes more widespread rather than targeted.
Yeah, definitely. That's a really good point to make. Hopefully, we've spoken a lot about Elder Scrolls because of the way they present it and how we both like it. There are other games also, but hopefully with Elder Scrolls Online coming out soon, which is more or less why I used Elder Scrolls as an example.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we get we get lore given to us in a way that we can appreciate more, and it will feel a bit like it did back then, or it will feel like the way that it does in Skyrim, you know, like, obviously you still want the MMO factor there, but the way the lore is transferred, if they could do that in the same sort of way, it'd be perfect.
Yeah, I'd be very happy with that, and and I'd be interested to see how they go about doing it, and if they can get it going and working for this MMO, perhaps you may find the same standard, perhaps in another MMO in the future. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe they'll stop making WoW clones and they'll start making Wizard clones.
Yeah, and maybe they'll stop, forcing this text onto our screens, so we spend less time, clicking on skip, trying to get rid of that text for one, but more importantly, less time we spend actually reading the text and learning what it is it's trying to tell us through adventuring. They need to stop explaining everything and stop babying us and let us connect the dots ourselves.
Exactly that. That's the perfect point. I think it's a great point to finish on as well.
Yeah, I think that's. I think we can finish there. And guys, I hope you enjoyed the episode today. It was slightly. I think it's slightly shorter. No, I mean we're doing good on time. I hope you enjoyed it. It was lore. It's very difficult to target specific things with lore without going into detail with video games. I know I'm not hugely into lore, but like I said, I like it here and there when it's presented properly. Wayne, you seem to share the same opinion, and hopefully the audience, if you have anything to share concerning lore, please leave a message or whatnot.
Yeah, definitely. And if you're one of those people who do like lore being spoon-fed to you in the way that we've discussed, feel free to tell us how that works for you and why you enjoy it. Because we've told you exactly why we don't enjoy it. It'd be good to hear something from the other sides.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can leave a message. And for those of you who use these other websites, I don't know, Facebook, is that what it's called? I don't know.
You're so old, man.
Yeah. So for you guys who use social networking, I think Wayne will be kind enough to leave a link for you to leave a message perhaps on there as well.
Definitely, yeah. It's going to be in the description of every single one of our videos.
Excellent.
Across
so I think
channel.
across the channel. Next week, I'm not going to say what we're going to be talking about next week. It's not printed in stone yet. It's not
finalized.
That's it. That's what I was thinking of. It's not finalized yet. So tune in next week, and perhaps we'll surprise you.
Yep, and thank you for listening, guys.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. Goodbye.
Bye.